I'm so tired of the lamestream media. It's about time we get down to the real news. Get involved, get loud, and think on the brink. This is Malcolm Out Loud. Welcome to Our World Out Loud, here with Herman Cain. Herman, how you doing, buddy?
Thank you, Malcolm. Happy to be here.
Good to have you here. And listen, just listen to you tonight. What a dynamic speaker. I didn't know you were that good.
Well,
in person, you're better.
Thank you very much. That's because I can kind of let it all hang out.
That's it, man. You connect with people.
Thank you very much. And I think it's because I love people. I enjoy people.
Yeah.
And I come from a background that allows me to relate to people.
Right.
So thank you.
All right, let me start here and ask you. I spent myself 25 plus years in the business community in corporate boardrooms around the world,
yes.
Running a worldwide advertising marketing agency, okay? Now, you as a businessman with what, Burger King, was National Restaurant Association,
yes.
of course.
Yes.
And, of course, where you made your name, Godfather's Pizza, of course,
yes.
President and CEO.
Right.
One of my beefs over the years is how do we get more business people involved in politics? Because, quite frankly, you know, when I've been in these boardrooms, there's some good ideas. There's some of the smart people are in the boardrooms. They're not in Washington. How do we get that accomplished?
Two ways. First, we have to appeal to independent businesses versus publicly held companies first, because too many publicly held companies are risk averse, right. And they try to avoid press and media. And here's why. If they've got stockholders, they're concerned that if they anger one group of stockholders over another, then they got to deal with a public relations thing. So they kind of stay below the radar. But the way we fix that, we've got to remove a lot of the governmental regulations that are killing businesses in the United States of America. That's how we get them.
So when you were with, like, Burger King or Godfather's Pizza, would you have run for office then?
When I was with Godfather's, I would have, because after I bought Godfather's with my management team, you know, I wasn't worried about, you know, outside stockholders, because I, along with my management team, we were the stockholders. And so this is why a lot of them stay below the radar and they work through their various respective associations. Okay.
You ran for president of the United States.
Yes.
Not a small task.
Nope.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
I would do it again, but I never say never, but I don't have any plans right now to do it again. The only thing that I would have done differently is I would have had a crisis management team in place and ready to go. I didn't have that crisis management team in place and ready to go in an instant. Well, and, you know, I still think we handled it as well as we could handle it, but I just didn't anticipate that the politics would get that dirty and that low.
Isn't that, oh, come on, isn't that part of business?
No, it's not. Not the businesses that I was in. I'm used to integrity in business, and I thought that there was at least a little bit of integrity in politics, and I found out that there's a lot more.
Well, my beef has been, again, that I think there are a lot of good people who
yes.
would run for political office, but what they are most concerned with is getting their families dragged through the mud.
Thank you.
They're worried about getting their lives dragged
yes.
through the mud, so they
yes.
stay out of it. You understand?
Yes.
They don't want anything to do with it.
See, I didn't have a problem with my life being drugged through the mud.
Yeah.
But I had a real problem when my family got drugged into it, and it was
exactly.
painful to them. You're absolutely right. And I've had business people say to me, you know, now I know why I would never do what you did.
Right.
And that's not good for this country. Otherwise, we're going to only end up with politicians in the highest office in the land.
All right. You were a bit of an oddity, for sure, in the 2012 race. No question about it. And
was it my eyes?
It was a lot of things. But like I said, no, it was an oddity in some ways. And I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, you're a businessman who's turned
yes.
around businesses.
Yes.
Typically, it's politicians who are running for the next office.
Right.
Okay? So it's kind of a one more rung up the ladder.
Right.
So we're a bit of an outsider. How did you try to fit into that
I
group?
definitely was an outsider, and I even boasted about the fact that I was an unconventional candidate. But here's how I got people's attention. Politicians try to come up with ideas that they think they can pass. Businessmen come up with ideas that will fix the problem. That's what distinguished me from many of the other candidates, and the American people caught on to that, and that's why they gravitated toward me.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah.
I can say it again if you want me to.
Yeah, I would. Say it again. It's that good. Say it again.
Politicians come up with ideas that they think they can pass. businessmen come up with ideas to fix the problem.
Yeah.
That's what set me apart.
See, that was that good. I wanted him to say it again so that you all get it. No, it's the truth.
It is the truth.
Yeah. But how do we get that point across? As the country is just, to me, I talk on radio every day.
Right.
And I just see it continually heading south.
The American people from the ground up, the grassroots, the citizens and activists, they're going to have to hold people's feet to the fire.
Right.
That's how we're going to change things, which is why I continue to develop what I call my solutions revolution. We've got to hold their feet to the fire. If we don't, they go to Washington, D.C., and it's business as usual. Okay. And we've got to stop business as usual.
Let's talk about the 2012 race for a moment, okay?
Yes.
All right. It was like a crazy race.
Yes.
I don't remember a race like this. I mean, it was really like a sitcom of some sort, you know?
It was.
All kinds of characters and players and people, and it was it was actually quite interesting. You know, I used to turn the debates on and, have like warm, hot cookies there and like a glass of wine. And say, it was a hell of a thing, just kind of tune in and say what's going on. It was like watching All in the Family, you know?
My 8-year-old grandson asked my 13-year-old granddaughter, he said, "What's a debate?" And out of the words of my then 12-year-old granddaughter, she said, "It's kind of like a game show where people want to be president." So it was entertaining, out of the mouths of babes.
Yeah, that's right.
And here's why I believe that it was so interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, we live in a 24/7 information overload society. Secondly, because of the people that were running, it was a cast of personalities and characters, and people started to get interested in watching the debates. And thirdly, when the networks and the cable stations saw how popular they were,
right,
they wanted to make money, so they wanted to do as many debates as they could.
The problem is,
yes,
you had MSNBC,
yes,
NBC,
yes,
CNN,
yes,
so you had all these left-wing lunatics in there.
Exactly.
Seriously, doing all. I didn't get that thing. Who approved all that?
Well, what happened?
Did that memo go by your desk?
That memo didn't come to my desk. I would have said no. But what happened was, we were at a point where if you didn't participate, you were going to be at a disadvantage.
Right.
Now, not having the money that some of the others had, not having a name ID, I had to participate in all the debates, no matter how liberally biased some of the questions might have been, and I think it worked out in my favor.
All right. Which brings me to the point. Mitt Romney.
Yes.
Okay. The heir apparent, again, to the GOP nominee, of course, and
right,
hopeful president of the United States. Here is a man that was not connecting to the people out here.
Right.
Okay. Here's a man who, there was a new candidate every other week, just about, who was taking the front status from him. Yet the establishment seemed to want Mitt Romney as the nominee.
Right.
And you were one of the front runners for some time, and you were doing it, man. You were there, and there were many others along the journey. Okay, what is it? What I hear from people out here and listeners, viewers, is that Mitt Romney simply did not connect to people. There's a word I use often on the radio. It's called authenticity.
Right.
It's called being yourself.
Yes.
Now, you did that tonight. I seen you earlier.
Yes.
You see, when you are yourself, it's amazing because you don't have to be anybody else. It's just engaging.
Mitt Romney, I have known for a number of years because when he ran in the last presidential election, I was a supporter of his because I wanted to see a businessman, a problem solver in the White House. I've heard the criticism before about his inability to connect with people. And I think a lot of that has to do with some of the situations that he has been exposed to directly, or a lack of being exposed to some directions. A young man that I know says the reason that he has a hard time connecting is because he's never been punched in the face and had to fight back physically.
Okay.
Hadn't been punched in the face.
Did you punch him?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't want to get arrested because of all those Secret Service guys standing around. But I grew up in an environment where you had to get punched in the face if you didn't punch back.
It's called the streets of America.
It's called the streets of America, exactly. And so I think, to put it in the words of one of his staff members, which I think described it, he's just too nice. But he's going to have to get over some of that niceness. Now, the good news is he has surrounded himself with some people who will fight back.
Yeah, I hope so. And you said that earlier.
Yes.
Tough question. One of the biggest issues this election cycle is Obamacare, yes?
Yes.
The repeal of Obamacare.
Yes.
If I haven't heard it a million times, I haven't heard it once.
Right.
Okay. We all understand that. I've had attorney generals on my show. We've talked about the individual mandate being unconstitutional, right?
Yes.
How is it, and this is, I don't know if you have an answer for this, how is it that the GOP makes our front runner the architect of the individual mandate? How does that happen, and how do we win that victory?
Governor Romney has said over and over and over that he wants to repeal Obamacare. People want to continue to beat him up for Romneycare in Massachusetts. That's behind him. He's been very clear. He wants to repeal Obamacare. Me personally, I does not care about Romneycare. I care about his definitive position on repeal Obamacare. Massachusetts care or Romneycare isn't going to affect the United States of America. We got to repeal Obamacare. And he has been emphatic about his attempt or his willingness and desire to do that.
So we believe he's going to do that.
I believe it.
And the purpose for Romneycare initially is not a factor.
Not a factor. It doesn't affect the United States. If he was timid about saying repeal Obamacare, that would be a different story. But he has said it over and over and over and over, and the American people are going to hold his feet to the fire.
Yep. You had an interesting quote on your blog. I have to give President Obama this. He is not very good at governing, but he has a rare talent for making it appear that he at least is talking about solutions to problems, when in fact he is talking about total nonsense that doesn't solve anything.
Correct.
Pretty strong words.
I mean it. I meant it, every word of it, because that's exactly what he does. He deceives, he distracts, and he divides. That's what has characterized this president and his administration, so I meant every word of that.
All right.
May I give you an example?
Please.
When he was candidate Barack Obama, okay, he would say one thing, and then when he became President Obama, he did something differently. For example, when he was a candidate, he said he would reduce the deficit by 50% by the end of his first term. What has happened? The deficit has gone up by 50% by the end of his first term.
Why are people not holding him accountable? Because his ratings are still respectable. How does he get away with that?
He gets away with it because of what I call, in America, we have the clueless 50%.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's going on. They don't have any idea what the issues are, and they allow him to get away with hypocrisy. That's why he continues to get 45 to 50% approval rating.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So, I mean, where we go from there to here is a question. You know, part of the problem I have with the Republican Party, as a conservative, by the way, and there are people in this room who know what I'm speaking about. For instance, it's one thing to be a conservative. It's another thing to be a Republican, you understand.
Yes.
What I have seen, I believe the Republican Party has lost their way. Okay? And I believe that has happened well before Barack Obama. And I believe when you look at our deficits and you look at where this country is, it's taken two parties to sink this ship, quite frankly. And so when I speak on radio every day, I speak in the tone of America, not so much the liberals or the conservatives, because I think there are extremists on both parties, both sides. I think the left have the extremists and the rights have the extremists, okay? But how do we get back to really create America's in the middle. America is in the center of the country. They don't really want these left-wing nuts and these right-wing nuts. They really want answers for their families, their businesses, their life. The problem is politicians all too often don't follow through.
Yes.
How do we get that to change?
The people have to be more involved more often in order to hold their feet to the fire. I absolutely agree with you. I don't defend the Republican Party as being perfect in all of the things that they've done. I think the Republican brand is damaged, but the Democrat brand is damaged. And I, like you, talk about conservative values and solutions. And what the Republican Party has to do better is to sharpen its message in explaining what it stands for. Those of us who've been around it and been to a lot of meetings and we see what it's about, we know what it's for, but they don't do a good job of carrying that message through some of its candidates to the people and to the different constituencies that it ought to attract.
Last question for you. Has the president failed in leadership?
Yes, absolutely. He has failed in leadership. And here's why. I have written a couple of books on leadership. I've given hundreds of speeches on leadership. Here's what leaders do that he has not done. First of all, leaders make sure you're working on the right problem. He didn't work on the right problem the right way. Mm-hmm. He wanted to spend nearly $1 trillion to stimulate the economy. That was working on the wrong problem. We can't spend our way to prosperity. Another example, gutting our military is not working on the right problem when the world is not safer. That makes absolutely no sense. The other thing that a leader does, in addition to making sure that they're working on the right problem, is that they should be removing barriers to solving those problems. But in order to remove those barriers, you have to come up with a solution to solve the problem. Right. He's come up with a lot of populist ideas. He's trying to pander to college students, talking about reducing the rates on interest on student loans. They want a job.
Right. Right.
You know, if they get a job, they can pay off the student loan. Interest rates isn't the biggest thing to them. The failed program that he had, the basically pandering to people about mortgages and things of this nature. Cash for clunkers, a huge failure.
Yeah.
All of these little programs.
We had a lot of fun with it on radio, though.
You're right. I did, too, when I was doing my radio show. You're right.
A lot of auto people on there.
In terms of leadership, I think that he has failed. And let me give you one last example. No leader on the planet would have an organizational structure with more than 36 czars, right, and nobody knows what in the Hades they do.
Right, exactly, yeah. Well, the interesting thing about it, if Mitt Romney does become President Romney, of course, there'll be higher unemployment because all the czars will be out of business.
Bye-bye to the czars.
I'm sure of that exactly here. Herman, interestingly enough, you have created Cain's Solution Revolution.
Yes, sir.
Which I find fascinating. And the reason I bring this up is because one of my gripes, again, are that a lot of people who get into politics don't really stay the course and try to really accomplish. I find that fascinating about you, that you are staying the course to do some things that mean something. I want to talk about that next in the next segment with you, so we can bring that to the people and tell them about Cain's Solution Revolution.
Got it.
It sounds like a good deal.
I love it.
Herman Cain. It's Malcolm Out Loud. Remember, get involved, get loud, and think on the brink. The system is broken. It's busted. It's a piece of you-know-what.
I agree with that. Washington is broken, and I've seen people who go there with the best of intentions, and then they get compromised gradually.